Interview with the Vampire, Season 2, Episode 3. This episode is called No Pain. When we open up with this episode, we are in the lobby of the hotel where Daniel is meeting with what we learn to be someone from the Talamasca, and his name is Raglan Jones. And he pretty much is there to let Daniel know that what you're doing, going undercover, really trying to find out the life of vampires and if they are real or not, hasn't it's not brand new. It's been done before, but there's never been any survivors. That's not something that you say to somebody as they're trying to survive what everyone thinks is the unthinkable. So Rashid, it appears that he is also in on it as well because he doesn't talk to Raglan, but there is some familiarity. We get back to the apartment with Armand and Daniel, and Armand sits down with Daniel to give his backstory and his where pretty much where he came from, the beginnings of his origin story. We start to get it, and it all starts in 1566. And we learn that Armand was sent to be the leader of the coven in Paris, and he's been the leader there for hundreds of years at this point. When he's sent there, he lives in squalor. Like he lives in pretty much horrid conditions, like what we would say probably looks like living in sewage. And we kind of understand that to be the case because we start to learn a little bit that Armand looks down on being a vampire, and because he is a vampire, he's made this strict religion around kind of subjecting himself to such horrid conditions because this is such a horrid existence. So he hides away from civilization and he makes that a part of coven life for the rest of the vampires that are in the coven. This is where we first meet Lestat and where we first see where Armand meets Lestat. And he doesn't actually meet Lestat, he feels Lestat. He feels Lestat as another vampire out in the world. And so that intrigues him, like, what the hell is going on? Who are you? And he goes to this theater where we see Lestat is performing. He is giving on a show. And, he says this is outside of the great laws of vampirism. And we see Lestat pretty much living his life as a human on a stage for human admiration and applause and being an actor. And so we see that Armand is like jealous but in awe and like also in disgust, like how dare you behave this way. And he talks to him because they're vampire, and that's where we see Lestat. He's on stage and he realized that there's another vampire. Like, oh my god, there's another vampire. Like, who is here? Who calls me my child? And Armand lets him know that I know who your maker is. Your maker is madness. I know he left. He didn't teach you anything. Come to me and I'll teach you everything. He didn't. And so we see Lestat figures out who the vampire is. He sees Armand and he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll come. And so after that initial meeting, we see where, like, kind of like a back alley, I guess Lestat is leaving, from doing his show, and he's with his boyfriend, Nikki. Armand approaches him because in his mind, he said that he's given Lestat, time to pretty much check in with the coven, and he hasn't. So he pretty much in his mind, like, I'm gonna make him do it now. And he confronts Lestat and he says, I know you haven't told, your lover who you are. And he starts to show powers to Lestat by stopping time and what's going on. He throws Nikki to the side, and when Lestat tries to defend Nikki, Armand has enough power to throw Lestat up against the stone wall. And we see that, Lestat is shocked by that, and Armand takes Nikki and he takes him down there to the den, that dingy ass den, that dungeon where he is with the rest of the coven. And Lestat, of course, he comes to rescue Nikki. And it's almost like, Armand wanted to bring him there. Like he wanted to kind of like lure Lestat into the coven. And the rest of the coven to see Lestat the way that he is in his in his glory and just not ashamed of being a vampire. And they are freaked out by this. Like his existence is blasphemous to them. And Lestat pretty much says that, all these symbols that you have that you put so much power in your religion, it only has that power because you give it that through your faith. It's not necessarily inherently powerful. You make it powerful just off of your belief. So whatever you want to believe about yourself, you can make it true just with your own manifestation. Like you give things power. And so when he let them know that pretty much broke the mold for the coven, and they go and kind of like go into a new form of life. Daniel in real time picks up on it, and he was like, Armand, that's what you wanted to happen because you didn't want to be the leader of the coven no more. And we learned that by this time he's been the leader for over 200 years. And Armand was like, yeah, I was tired of being the leader, but I knew if I said it, they wouldn't have left, so they needed to hear from somebody else. But it's almost like Armand knows how to get people to do his work for him in such a covert way. For him to be as old as he is, he really knows how to make himself look like a damsel at times. And so Armand, he's being even more committed to the great laws during this time. He's saying to keep himself from going crazy. He's even more committed. Lestat visits the coven. He knows Armand is there alone, and he pretty much goes there asking Armand to teach him everything that he knows about being a vampire. And this initial scene when this scene you see like almost the emotional exchange that they're willing to make for this to happen. Armand is already like head over heels. You can just see him already getting drunk up into what it is that Lestat is, his aura. And we also see with Lestat, he's almost like, yeah, I think you're cute, but just cute enough to play with. But yeah, I'll play along as long as you give me what I want. Like he's already given like undercover fuck boy. Like, yeah, I'll play along. I know you want me. And if as long as you want me, I can get what I want out of you. And we see that. We see where there's another performance. Nikki is a violinist. He's in the orchestra playing. And Armand and Lestat are up in one of the boxes all hugged up and kissing on each other. And they legit get it on in the box. And before they do, Armand tells Lestat that he loves him. And Lestat says, I love you too. And like, the look on his face, everything, you just know he's just saying it to say it. And as this is happening, Nikki literally sees it happening, but he's playing in the orchestra. Like he's angrily playing, like he has to keep up, he has to keep on with the show. And you actually do feel bad for him. And Armand is so wrapped up even in present day in that moment that him and Lestat was on that floor getting it on, that when we come into present day, Louis is the one who, continues the story as he's like, yeah, and they got it on the floor. And then a week later, Lestat left, never returned, but he left them money to cover the coven. And Armand is just still wrapped up in this time with Lestat. And you can tell he's like, oh, I've never told anyone else that I love them except 150 years later. And he alludes that by looking at Louis. And I'm like, okay, Lestat couldn't have been there that long. You done got wrapped up already. But Lestat was very pivotal in the theatrical production and how they do the shows. And that's where the title comes from, No Pain. It was Lestat's way, because Lestat's way of luring the audience in and making them complicit with the performance as they actually kill people on the stage. And then also the person that they kill on the stage, they lure them in and make it non-painful, like it doesn't hurt, and pretty much they beg for the death at that point. And Armand says early on that was always Lestat's vision, to make the audience willfully ignorant and willfully a part of it. So they are just as a part of the debauchery as you are. And it's like, you know what? That is so pretty much like, you can't call me evil because you willfully went along with this evilness as long as it entertained you. So we move to Louis and Claudia. It's 1940s. They're still trying to come up with this lie on who Bruce is. And Claudia's pretty much like an intern for the coven, but like a shitty intern. Like she's left to do shit that don't nobody want to do. Louis ends up we also transition to Louis and Armand walking through the park. And we learn that what Armand is really attracted to in Louis is the same thing he was attracted to in Lestat. And it makes sense because Louis is Lestat's fledgling. He's attracted to their freedom and how they're just able to be themselves unapologetically, whereas Armand feels restricted by principles and laws and how to behave. They end up before this, as they're walking, Bruce, aka Lestat, comes to Louis's mind. And we already know that Armand is aware of who Bruce really is, but he's just gonna play along with Louis, I guess, to see how long Louis gonna lie. And so he let him know, like, hey, you need to be able to guard your thoughts more. And he's like, about Bruce. And he's like, what if I just wanted you to find that out? And Lestat, the one that he's seeing in his vision, Dreamstat, he's like, oh, that was real clever what you did right there. Like, he like, you thinking of me. He knows that you're thinking of me, but you're gonna play it off like, yeah, I'll let you get in my head. So they're in the jazz bar and they're talking and they're going over what makes what evil and what makes what good. And they're going having an open discussion. And once again, the rest of the night, Lestat's spirit just plagues Louis throughout this entire time with Armand. I think it has to do with guilt, but then also, maybe dealing with feelings that he might miss Lestat, but also the guilt, especially in how it relates to his budding relationship with Armand. And Armand is now starting to like get more cutthroat. Like he has that soft undertone, but it's undercut with venom. Like, yeah, I know you lying to me. I know you lying to me, and I know who Bruce really is. So tell the truth. And Lestat is still in his vision. Like he sees Lestat there, even though he's not in real life. And Lestat is singing to him, pretty much letting him know that you only with him because I'm not there, and you only with him because you bored right now. You need a rebound, and you sad. Like, you don't want him. You know he'll never be me. You know you'll never love him like you love me. So pretty much just stop, give it up. And he already knows you lying, and he's just playing along. And you feel burdened to tell him the truth, but he ain't who you think he is. He raggedy too. So Louis ends up spilling his guts and saying that it was Lestat. And, and Armand is like, you done fucked up. You done broke one of the great laws. And Louis like, Lestat didn't teach me nothing. I don't know nothing about no great laws. So pretty much don't try to hold that against me when I don't even know what that is. Which is a good point. But at the same time, these are vampires. So they're not thinking with the they are within their own realm, but they're not thinking on a moral compass that we on the other side of life would be thinking on. So Louis ends up having an outburst at Lestat's vision, thinking that it's real, but it's really not. So he ends up leaving the bar. He ends up, like I said, just still plagued by Lestat. He sees him walking, and he's kissing him in this park. And Lestat is like, kill me again, kill me again. And Louis is smashing Lestat's head in. And he ends up killing him. But we find out it was just a soldier. So Louis ends up killing this innocent man, thinking that it's Lestat. That's how much he is just toe up in his mind, thinking that, Lestat is there. We get to, this is a more vulnerable part of the episode. We get back to Louis and Claudia's apartment where Claudia finally tells Louis what happened to her while she was with Bruce, and it's very sad what happened to her. Bruce breaks her legs. He also pins her down, and he violates her repeatedly. And to also make it even worse, as he's doing it, he's telling her how much he loves her, which is such a mind fuck, and just such a painful experience. And Louis, he's torn between telling Claudia that, Armand knows their real truth now, versus just being there listening to Claudia. And you can tell that this also hurts Louis. He's very hurt by the fact that Claudia endured what she endured and what happened to her. And I think he feels even more guilty because the fact that, this happened to her as she had left, when they had that, not the big fight, but the precursor to that, what made her leave, when she was like, why didn't you just take me to a hospital? Why did you damn me to this type of existence? So I think, it hurts Louis to hear that, and he feels guilty in that. So what this allows for is that I think Louis now is much more open to her joining a coven, because hearing what happened to her, and also knowing how Claudia just has this yearning for belonging. Now he understands why she's so in awe of the coven, and so wants to join them and be a part of them, even though he doesn't want to. So he gives his support, and he comes pretty much to her initiation. We also learn that during her initiation, Armand claims that Louis can't be there. It's only for coven members. So Louis leaves with Armand, and Claudia stays back with the coven during her initiation. They end up for her during her initiation. They read the great laws, and as they read all of the great laws, we immediately see that Claudia realizes that she has broken one of the great laws, but she's not going to, she's going to do her best to not act on it. Like, you already know, like, feeling that impending gloom with the guilt. But they end up, she's on this chair. They end up, pretty much parading her around, and she gets to take a bite out of each coven members, and gets to drink their blood. Then we see that now Claudia is a member of the coven. We see what her role is going to be, and they're gonna have her play some baby doll character for the next 50 years, and they give her this blue baby doll dress, and it is such a slap in the face to Claudia. And it becomes apparent that the coven really has an underhanded dislike for Claudia and Louis. They are much more open about their dislike for Louis, but their dislike for Claudia seems much more insidious, with how they're all playing as if they like her, and they don't. And the fact that they have chosen this type of role for her, knowing how she struggles in her identity, that is a kick in the ass. That's like a I don't fuck with you. So as they're leaving, as Louis and Armand are leaving, they go through the tunnel, and we also learn that Armand is supposed to get rid of Louis during this time, and Louis picks up on that, and he's like, "Hey, just get rid of me, take care of Claudia, make sure she has everything she needs," because he tries to reassure Armand that Claudia had nothing to do with Lestat's attempted, murder. And that's when Armand says something that really foreshadows the rest of the season. He says, "Oh, you don't have to worry about her. She won't be here long." And Louis questions him about that. Like, what does that mean? But either way, he begins to accept his fate. He's feeling like he's gonna be like this is the end for him. But they end up outside of his apartment where Armand pretty much reveals to Louis that he also was with Lestat as well. When he's asking Louis, I think he asked Louis, did Lestat break him? And if he did break him, just give it some time because he knows what that feeling is like. And that's when Louis was like, you too? He was like, yeah, 100 years ago. But he was like, what is that to a vampire? He was like, 100 years, it really just feels like yesterday. And I'm like, this man is still, he is still wrapped up in Lestat. And they kiss and they go upstairs. And it makes you really start to wonder what is his intentions on pursuing Louis. Like, yes, they are vampires out in the world that need to be amongst other vampires due to the great laws. But it's also a very, everything is underhanded now. And we know that everything now has an ulterior motive. Because Armand it's almost as if I can't have you, then and if you're not gonna want me the way that I want you, I'm gonna get close to the very thing that I know you love, and I'm gonna fuck with that, and that's gonna fuck with you. And it's like, Armand, girl, you are calculated, but he gives such a soft damsel in distress look, and it's like, Armand, you gotta watch you. But that's the end of the episode review. We'll be back for episode 4. Let me know what you thought of the episode. Thanks and bye.